So, Dave, I'm afraid I haven't actually, got anything ready for you, but, I'm sure from what I understand, you need no introduction.
Oh, that's scary.
That's supposed to be a compliment, but,
This is great. It's actually been a great session this afternoon. Listening to Tammy and Melissa and Angela, found myself doing a lot more of this than I did of this, except for that bag reservoir that people are still trying to use. I just haven't figured out, how do you do a pump sucker with a bag reservoir? Maybe we should ask a chat bot and they'll give us the answer. I knew somebody would have the answer. All right, so here we go. I'm going to try, this is a sponsored talk, so I'm going to try and be mostly serious, which is not natural to me. Talking today about hemonetics and basically presenting my experience with a couple of their products that I've had the opportunity to bring into my facility in the last couple of years. So good afternoon, welcome. Thanks for inviting me. Thanks for joining us in person or remotely for this conversation about my experience with these two products, the Cell Saver Elite Plus and the Hemonetics TEG 6S. I have disclosures for the first time in my career. I am actually being financially compensated for, partially financially compensated for my appearance here and my talk for Hemonetics. The views that I express, again, are solely my own and not that of Hemonetics, so they bear no responsibility for anything that I say that is inappropriate. Thank you for laughing. Okay, so I'll do my own introduction. I've been a certified perfusionist for about 15 years. I was a registered nurse for a period of time before that. I still maintain my active license in New York State because I think that helps me maintain the humanistic side of this technology field that we're in. I have an extensive background in management and leadership, thanks to the U.S. Navy, back when I served in World War II. I've done quite a bit of work with ECMO program building and a lot of ECMO training throughout my career. A little bit of research and publication on that. I have professional interests in perioperative blood management, specifically today, intraoperative blood conservation, data analytics, and AI. It's kind of funny. I started going down this AI road a few years ago when I took a class at MIT, and it's just fascinating to see Melissa talking about this. I had a great conversation with Tiffany about a month or so ago after she published in AMSEC Today. So it's exploding in our face before we're even ready to have the conversations. So a couple other of my passions, and again, thank you, Melissa, for shamelessly asking for somebody to hire you to do something outside of this field, because I am also a pilot. I do this in my own time when I can afford it. There's the plane that I actually fly. And if there are any millionaires in the audience that want to be flown to these conferences, I will be more than happy to take you in style. You just have to show me the money. All right, that's the only funny part of this. So I'm going to start talking first about the Cell Saver. So we're talking about the Hemonetics Cell Saver Elite Plus with intelligent control. The intelligent control part of that is a new software upgrade that I was fortunate to bring into my hospital up in New York. And I believe my hospital was the first site worldwide to beta test this before it was introduced to the world. So we got to see it first. So I'll talk about some of the design features, and then I'm going to spend a little bit of time, short period of time, talking about the TEG, which I've also been passionate about throughout my career. So there's a picture of our Cell Saver Elite Plus. I think that's a really long name, Cell Saver Elite Plus. So I've took the liberty of creating an acronym. We're going to call it CSEP from now on. Is that okay? Can we do that? I'm getting the no from the people in the audience. So Cell Saver Elite Plus, the benefits are the efficiency of this RBC recovery, its advantages in washing out the bad stuff and keeping the good stuff, naturally product hematocrit, modes of operation, and we'll talk a little bit about that. This cool smart suction feature, the multiple bowl sizes, and its ability to do data collection for you. So I'm an engineering background long before I was even a nurse, did that for a while. So the techie side of things really appealed to me. So we're going to talk about the LATHAM bowl design, and I'm not going to compare them to other ones because I don't want to name anybody else, but I'm sure you guys are familiar with these products enough. So the LATHAM bowl design, it's a rigid bowl The physics of how it centrifuges the blood is what makes it most efficient and easiest to wash out the bad stuff. So here's just a review of how this works. Blood is pumped into the bottom of the centrifuge, and it's the centrifuge action that rises the red cells. The red cells go up, pushes out the lighter stuff, which is going to be your broken blood cells, plasma-free hemoglobin, white cells, fat modules, everything else that you don't want in there. Once the red cell level reaches a level where a laser eye sees it, then it begins its wash process. And the wash goes up through the red cells, getting rid of all the bad things. The thing I like most about this product when it's washing is you can actually see the effluent line, and probably more so than any of the other products I've used, this will not trigger processing your red cells into the collection bag until it is a very, very clear effluent. So it's very efficient getting all that bad stuff that we don't want in our bag, especially clots. When it's done washing, it's going to pump out into your collection bag and allow you to get that to your patient. So it's the design engineering of this bowl, which is used in another product as well, but there are a couple of products that use other less efficient modes. So what are elements of high quality blood return? Again, I want to talk about this smart suction. So the smart suction is pretty cool. It has onboard suction where it regulates the amount of suction to the field so that it doesn't hemolyze the red cells. So it hangs out at a low suction, about 30 millimeters of mercury. And then when it senses the restriction that it's in a solid fluid, it can increase it automatically up to 165. So this took a little bit of learning on the surgeon's end because they're used to hearing that whistling, hey, turn that up until I can hear it, which is usually around 300 of wall suction or something ridiculous like that. But we know from the AABB that we start hemolyzing red cells probably 200 or so. The auto suction, the smart suction allows it to regulate automatically between 30 and 165. You can manually adjust that up to 250 if you need it. So here's a cool little handout out of their brochure, which talks about what makes their product. I'm reaching for my glasses because I can't read my own stuff. Don't get old. So some of the cool features about this is in product testing, is that we know we're going to wash out plasma-free hemoglobin. 99% of that bad stuff is going to go away. Fat reduction, 99%. Total proteins, 99%. We're going to get rid of almost 100% of the heparin, and then potassium is almost 99%. So when you do your quality controls, you're going to see that this is a much better product than anything else on the market. We know that in product testing that we get an average crit of 58 up to 66, and I've heard anecdotal reports of crits in excess of 70, which is pretty amazing for a cell saver. And I've used all the major ones in the last even 5 years, and nobody's coming close to these product numbers. Intelligent control. So this is the cool part. This is the new software that we were able to test up at my hospital up in New York. I'll show you some screenshots of what it does. And one of the great things I love about this product is the ease that you can navigate these menus. They're very intuitive. So if you go to, where's my little laser pointer here? Can you guys see that? All right, cool. So this tab up in here, which is your active setting, this is going to tell you what mode you're in. These are, there's a couple of default program settings that come from Haemonetics, but the cool thing is you can create your own program settings, your own default profiles, whether you do it for, say, cardiac surgery, you have a cell saver sitting in an ortho room, you're doing some gut surgery or something that, you end up sucking a lot of belly fat or something up into the cell saver. But you can also create custom profiles based on individual surgeons. You've got that surgeon who really likes a high suction pressure. You got different individual perfusionists who like to operate differently. You can create profiles in a number of ways. That's all available in this active setting, this pull down menu here. So if you are in cardiac like I am and you select the cardiac, then you have the ability to develop profiles underneath cardiac. So this is where you would see under the new software these two of the three things that are part of this intelligent control, which is your quick transfer. So this is going to be a situation where you're in either a trauma, you got a lot of bleeding, your surgeon nailed the aorta on the way in or something, and you want to get that blood back to the patient as quick as possible. So this allows the suction to go right through and get pumped up into the bag, assuming that you're getting solid red cells back. It has no wash feature, no spin feature. It just pumps it right up into the bag. So that's really good. It's kind of funny. We got the Cell Saver with this feature about a week after we had one of those cases, and I would have really enjoyed having this because it's much more efficient than rapid transfusions up at the anesthesia table. The manual mode, this is another situation where if you get in an emergency of some sort, or you're just one of those people who like to control everything, perfusionists aren't controlling. You would actually put somebody at the Cell Saver because this, you literally have to manually control every aspect of the Cell Saver process. So you would control your filling, and you would have to decide, okay, that's enough blood in there. And then you have to manually put in the wash mode. You would wash it until you saw a clear effluent. And then at that point you would trigger an empty. And you literally have to have somebody standing at the panel because none of this is automatic. You'll empty your wash bag, you'll empty your entire blood out of the reservoir into the effluent bag if you're not paying attention. So this mode really requires somebody standing by it. And then again, you can have access to different modes as well. So this is kind of what one of the control configuration screens looks like. There's a bunch of options. It's probably too small to see. It's definitely too small for me to see and talk about. But you literally can control everything from fill speed, wash volume. I'm trying to read some of the other things. You can select or deselect those manual modes. So if you are a facility like mine was, where you get Cell Savers in-house, you give it to the main operating room and you let other non-perfusionists run this, and you're not necessarily sure of their ability to run this in manual mode, you can take those automatic smart modes out of their menu so they don't have access to it and accidentally do the wrong thing. So you have the ability to select or deselect those smart modes. Intelligent control features allow increased user versatility, increased speed of processing and getting your products back to the patient quicker. And again, there's a very simple navigating their screen, their on-screen commands, and it's all push button touchscreen control. So some personal observations from having the Cell Saver Hemonetics in-house at my facility is you can be truly autonomous, and that's anywhere from fully automatic to fully manual and everything in between. It gives a better product and faster with less waste, and that's your spillage that goes in your waste bag. And a good example of that is when I brought this in-house, I had a spine surgeon who would routinely call for Cell Saver on all of his spine cases. And he commented to me when we started the new Cell Saver that he had a history of not getting processed blood back at the end of his case. And we started this new Cell Saver, then all of a sudden he started getting product to give back to his patients. And it's not like he was all of a sudden having bloodier procedures. It's just that the previous Cell Saver we had was spilling so much of the good stuff into the waste bag that there just wasn't enough to process and put up in the bag. So he made that comment right after we started this, that he was starting to get product back. So that was a pretty cool feedback. Intuitive control menu, I've already talked about that. The small footprint with the internal suction. In order to use the smart suction feature, you have to use the internal suction, but the machine is quiet. I don't see any reason to use wall suction, which is terribly inaccurate, or another manual suction device or automatic suction device outside of that. The other cool thing is that installed hardware for future connectivity. So we talked about in some of our conversations earlier, everything is going electronic. The hospital's integrating our perfusion records off the heart-lung machine. They're getting things off the anesthesia machine. So the hardware is already there for either direct connectivity, which is an Ethernet cable in the back, or it actually has Wi-Fi on board. And I believe that there are some facilities that figured out how to hook up the Wi-Fi so that it's sending your Cell Saver data, everything for your case, directly and putting it in your EMR, whether it's Epic or whatever you're using for hospital-wide. So that's coming. It's pretty cool. I'm not sure where the other manufacturer's at with this connectivity. And then I put this last bullet down here, best support structure in the industry. So the guys who came and helped me install this in the hospital were just there all the time. I have their cell phone numbers. I could call them at 3 o'clock in the morning, ask them for a new recipe. They were awesome. They really helped me out. There's a 1-800 number. You can call them. They're going to feed it on to whoever is responsible for that, and you're going to get an email or call back within 24 hours if something breaks, if it goes out of service or you got a question. So very responsive support from this company. Now we're going to talk about the TEG. How many TEG users in here? Show of hands. Oh my God, not that many. I'm actually kind of surprised. So I've been a big TEG guy since the beginning, my time back at the Mayo Clinic 15-ish years ago, the original version of the TEG. I love the TEG because I think it's smart technology. If you use it in the right hands and you know what you're looking at, then it can save you a lot of money. And that's what this whole conversation about today is: how do we bring a product that is not only safer to the patient, but how do we save the hospital money in the process? So this is probably one of the best ways of doing this. And if everybody remembers back, most people in this room have been in this perfusion field long enough to know that at the end of 2021, so I'm thinking December 2021, when the Red Cross notified us all that, oh, by the way, we have no more blood product, we're going to be rationing how much blood you guys get every day, you know, we had a panic. Now, what was really cool is that at my facility, I'd already reached out to these guys at Haemonetics. We were already testing the device, and the timing was absolutely perfect because we had a executive level meeting. How are we going to get around this? We have no blood product come from the American Red Cross. And we're, oh, by the way, we have this new product, which is going to help us be smarter with our transfusions. And I believe they literally cut the check for a few of these units within a couple of weeks. So it was our way of giving the administration an option to work around the lack of blood products so that we can continue doing surgery the way we were before. So everybody knows TEG stands for Thromboelastography. Elastography? I'm going to work on that. It's a method of testing the efficiency of blood coagulation. That's the definition out of Wikipedia, the manual of all things medical. There's what the thing looks like, and it's small. It's like a bread box. I don't think it's about this narrow, maybe this tall, lightweight. Put it in your pocket, take it home at the end of the day. Don't do that. The available tests, so there's 3 cartridges. And for the guys who haven't seen, for the folks in the audience who haven't seen it, this is literally the TEG cartridge that it uses. So everybody's at least probably seen or heard of the iStat. I probably shouldn't say that word, but people keep asking, you know, how big are these cartridges that we're using? They're not some monstrous thing that we put 10 cc's of blood in. It's 2 or 3 micro milliliters, 0.2, 0.3 milliliters of blood to fill that thing up. So there's 3 cartridges available. One of them is the global hemostasis. That's going to be our primary cartridge for any bleeding patient when we want to look at their actual dynamic of their clotting. Then there's my favorite, the platelet mapping, and then the LYSIS cartridge. This is a cartridge you're going to run if you've got a patient that you suspect is in hyperfibrinolysis, primary, secondary. Gives you a great visual picture, and you can pretty much know right away that you got something bad going on, like DIC or some other factor. So those are the 3 tests available. We'll spend a little bit of time talking about each of these. Global hemostasis, again, this is the one you're going to use for your bleeding patient. Gives you 4 results for this cartridge. These are citrated tests. So you got your citrated kaolin, which is your activator, is going to give you your bleeding profile. This is this is going to look at everything that's affecting your bleeding and your clot dynamic. Then you got your rapid TEG. This is going to give you a representation of your platelet strength by shortcutting, and it starts that test right away. So you get a platelet strength, platelet contribution to your clot right away. CKH, this is your heparinase TEG. So this is going to take out the effect of any heparin you got on board. Not probably enough heparinase on board to run it while you're on bypass, but definitely after protamine or before you give heparin, it can give you that representation. And then your functional fibrinogen, your citrated functional fibrinogen, which is going to be a representation of your fibrin contribution to the clot. So I've got a couple of pictures here. Some people have seen these things, even if you don't use it. Everybody's familiar with what this thing looks like. So it actually overlays all 4 of those traces on the same output. So if you look up in here, they're color coded so you know which ones you're looking at. So we talked about the difference between the citrated kaolin, which is your entire clot dynamic. That's the red trace, which is going to tell you everything about it. And when you compare this to your green trace, which is your heparinase, the only purpose of this is to see what the difference of your, basically your ACT, which is this straight line right here before the TEG actually starts. You compare those 2 values right there, and that's going to tell you whether or not you still got heparin on board. after you've given protamine. If you see a difference there, hey, maybe the patient needs a little bit more protamine. Generally, you want to see, if you're running a post-operative TEG, you want to see these two match up to show you don't have any heparin effect. The rapid TEG, again, this number right here is just a quick representation, which is your purple line. It starts that test right away, and that's going to give you a representation in milliamps, maximum amplitude, sorry, of your platelet strength, your platelet contribution to the clot strength. And then you've got your functional fibrinogen, which is your fibrinogen contribution to your clot. And this TEG, which was a demo one, shows this patient needs quite a bit of product. And before I go into the platelet mapping one, I want to review, this is what platelets actually look like. I took these pictures with my cell phone before this conversation. That's a discoid platelet that is happy and just hanging out, circulating the blood. This is an angry platelet. This is what a platelet looks like after it's been activated. You can see that it can change forms, and these sticky tendricles, I think I just created a new word, actually attach to everything. This is how they aggregate. And then this is a zoomed out picture of lots and lots of platelet aggregation. So that's going to be what a clot looks like. And here's another picture taken with my cell phone. There's a red blood cell, there's your white blood cell leukocyte, and there's your platelet, and they're binding those two together. You get a lot of these things together, and hopefully you're making some clot when you want to and not when you're not. So the, I don't know what happened to my platelet mapping picture. Got ahead of myself there. That's funny. So this is going to be what your platelet mapping cartridge looks like. Again, you've got 4 separate tests on the platelet mapping test. And this is the big advantage of the TEG success versus some of the other manufacturers, is nobody else does a really good job of platelet mapping. It's going to tell you all the aspects of your platelet contribution to the clot, including especially the ADP and the AAA channels down here, which are your interference from either aspirin or some kind of Plavix or other type of platelet inhibitor. And again, these are all color-coded, so you can look at all these either individually or all at the same time. Your red is going to be your HKH, so that is a heparinase kaolin TEG. So this would be very similar to the global hemostasis TEG that we saw on the earlier slides. It doesn't give the values for your R time and your angle and the K. It just gives you MA, but only because it's not validated for those numbers. This red trace up here is the exact same red trace you would see if you ran the other cartridge. So the advantage of this platelet mapping cartridge is it gives you a representation of what your clot dynamic looks like without running the whole other cartridge first. So, and you can run this because it's got heparinase. This is the only cartridge you can actually run on bypass if you want to see this stuff. This also gives you an indication of your platelet function, your fibrinogen function over here, and then again, your inhibition from, these are your these are your platelet contributions to the clot. And if you look down here, it actually gives you numbers represent how inhibited you are from whatever inhibitor you got going on, and your agglutination. So these are just going to be opposite stuff. So its ability to agglutinate versus its inhibition. So these are just going to be opposite numbers. And again, with the aspirin channel, we see that a lot. And when we ran this at our facility, we were surprised how many people came in preoperatively that had some inhibition from the aspirin. So many people out there taking a baby aspirin every day. We can actually see that on this test. The good thing is about aspirin is that you can kind of reverse it. We give a dose of DDAVP that's recommended in the literature, and you can reverse some of that aspirin effect. The bigger reason we run the platelet mapping is that there is no way to reverse Plavix. There's some old school physicians, surgeons, anesthesiologists out there say, well, just give some more platelets, and that's going to reverse any kind of platelet inhibitor you got on board. But what's interesting about the Plavix and all these other P2Ys is that when you give this medication, that medication is in your circulation for up to 72 hours. So 3 days after they get this, you can give all the new platelets you want, but all those new platelets are going to be anesthetized, inhibited by the still circulating P2Y that's on board. So one of the cool things we found about this is that not only does it give you a picture if you're doing these patients pre-op, they just came out of the cath lab a couple days ago, you're going to see these patients subclinical. So we were surprised how many patients, when we started testing them after the cath lab, were ready for surgery on day 2, when we know that the manufacturers recommend a 5-day washout of their P2Y, Plavix, Brilinta, all this other stuff that cardiology loves loading our patients up with. So we found out these patients were ready for surgery a day or two earlier. That's saving bedtime. You don't have to sit them in the hospital waiting for surgery on day 5 when they're ready to go on day 2 or 3. So we were really surprised how many of these patients were subclinical, because there's really no way to measure them after the cath lab gives them their P2Y. So this was kind of cool. It was very eye-opening. So we saved some money just on the front end by being able to do their surgery sooner and keep them out of the hospital bed. That's enough about that. So we talked about some potential cost savings, and this is what this is all about. How do we save the hospital money? How do we be a more responsible steward for blood product administration in the hospital, especially in this day and age where people just aren't going out and donating blood that they were 10 years ago. So again, I just talked about the pre-op bed days. You want to wash out that stuff instead of sitting the 5 days. You can test them earlier and see if they're ready earlier. Pre-op coagulopathy recognition. So we do this on occasion. We want to make sure that if they have a history of bleeding or something, we want to make sure there's nothing coagulopathic going on that we can see in the TEG. Intra-op balanced transfusion. So this is a term that I believe we started using, at least when I was at the Mayo Clinic. Balanced transfusion, targeted transfusion. I know Mayo did a huge study where when they looked at how much unnecessary blood they were giving, it was the equivalent of, and I believe Dr. Arith said it was the equivalent of crashing a helicopter every single month, because that's how much money they were wasting in unnecessary blood transfusions. So this is the cool thing. We all work with doctors, anesthesiologists, surgeons. Oh God, we're closing. It's still wet. What do we do? Order everything. You know, they're going to give cryo, red cells, FFP, platelets, just across the board. All right, that first round didn't work. Get another round. Okay, that didn't work. Give me the factor 7. Next thing you know, you're $20,000, $30,000 of blood product into these patients. And something can be identified really early. Maybe they only need a couple of FFP. Maybe they only need a couple of platelets instead of everything. So this gives you a targeted transfusion. Decreased product usage, that's what this is all about. Decreased risk of TRALI, transfusion-related acute lung injury. The more product we give, we know there's enough literature out there that shows that we're increasing their risk of this lung injury by all this product we give. Decreased post-operative vent time. TRALI means you're going to be ventilated longer. That's longer in the ICU. That's money money out of the pocket. Decreased post-op ICU days. This is all kind of connected. Decreased hospital stay. It's all connected. Decreased morbidity and mortality. We know for every unit of blood product we give, patient has an increased morbidity and mortality. This is all studied and well documented. So the big thing is that, it's the question that I didn't put on here, is how do I go to my administration and say, hey, I need to go buy all this expensive equipment? And I think the answer to that is, how can you afford not to? You know, if you can show that you can save money by bringing technology into the fold instead of doing things the way we've been doing it for 20, 30 years, I don't think you have a really good justification for how you can afford to bring this technology in-house. And I know that when we brought the TEG into the hospital I was at, we brought it in for a trial of 2 weeks. I think they only wanted to give it to me a week, and I had it for 2 weeks. I know I saved $30,000 just in the 2 weeks that we were testing the device by not giving blood products. So these things are going to pay for themselves. They're going to save your product lots and lots of money, depending on the size of your hospital and the size of your program. But again, I don't know how you can afford not to. I'm a big fan. Thank you so much.